There was something comforting about our street, the kind of place where neighbors nod knowingly and kids ride their bikes in lazy loops until the porch lights come on. I used to think of it as a little world where nothing bad could sneak in. Daniel and I fit right in. We were the couple people waved at with that, "you two are perfect" kind of smile. He had this easy charm that turned strangers into friends. And me? I was just happy. Quietly happy. I believed in what we had. I believed in him. But lately, things started to feel off. Not in a dramatic soap opera way, just these little changes that only someone who truly knows would notice. Daniel began spending more time in the yard, pruning plants that didn't need it, fussing over the grass like it held secrets. He'd spritz on cologne to run quick errands on a Sunday. And when I asked him what we needed from the store, he'd forget. Every time. I didn't accuse him. I didn't cry. I just filed it away. A part of me already knew. I just hadn't admitted it yet. And then there was Natalie. Always smiling. Always too close. She had a way of talking like she'd known you for years. Too friendly. Too familiar. She started popping up whenever Daniel was outside, offering lemonade, asking about our hydrangeas, laughing a little too long at his jokes. My skin prickled every time I saw her lean against our fence. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I could feel the shape of the truth forming. And once you feel that shift, you can't unfeel it. You start watching and waiting. I started noticing the little things first. His phone turned face down more often, texts he'd clear out before I ever had the chance to glance. And the way his voice would change when Natalie called out from across her yard. Softer, almost younger. He'd laugh in that boyish way I hadn't heard in a long time, like he wanted to impress her. It was strange how quickly my own home began to feel like a stage. I wasn't watching my husband anymore. I was watching a version of him perform, and the audience wasn't me. At night, he still kissed me on the cheek, still asked if I needed anything, still lay beside me with the same steady breath he always had. But I felt it, the absence, like trying to sleep next to a ghost of someone who used to love you. I'd lie there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and wonder when exactly things had started to unravel. Was it something I said? Something I didn't? Or was it just the slow, silent betrayal of routine, of taking each other for granted, until someone new seemed shinier? The worst part was pretending. Pretending not to notice the way he lingered near the fence. Pretending Natalie wasn't always there, her laughter floating through our open windows like perfume you didn't ask to wear. I'd wave back at her too, like nothing was wrong. I'd offer her a smile with just the right amount of warmth. But inside, something was tightening. A knot of suspicion, of hurt, of quiet rage beginning to curl itself around my ribs. I didn't say a word, not yet. But I was paying attention now, with every cell in my body. I started to keep a mental journal, each moment, each odd glance, each too long smile. I wasn't paranoid. I was observant. There's a difference. When you've loved someone long enough, you feel the shift before you can explain it. Like a draft sneaking through a closed window. That's what Daniel had become. A draft in my life, still present, but no longer warm. And Natalie? She played her part well. Sweet enough to fool most, harmless enough to seem forgettable. But I was done underestimating her. The fence between our houses suddenly felt like more than just wood and nails. It became this strange stage where everything happened, half visible, half secret. I'd catch snippets of their conversations, harmless words on the surface. But his tone gave him away. The softness in it, the way he lingered before coming back inside, and I'd stand at the kitchen sink, hands in soapy water, heart pounding like a drum I couldn't quiet. I wasn't just listening, I was collecting. Not facts, not yet, but energy, instinct, truth, in its rawest form. That was the moment I stopped wondering and started planning. Because deep down, I already knew where this was going. I could feel it in my bones, the slow, awful certainty of betrayal. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. That's not who I am. If they thought they were clever, they hadn't seen clever yet. I didn't know exactly what I'd do. Not yet. But I knew one thing for sure. I was done pretending not to see. And if they wanted to dance across that fence, I'd be the one holding the spotlight. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I saw it. Nothing explosive, no kissing, no confessions. Just the two of them, standing by the fence, too close, too comfortable. Natalie tossed her head back, laughing like she was in a romantic comedy. Daniel leaned in, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. The worst part? It was all so casual. Like I wasn't even real. Like our marriage was just a costume he wore when he came inside. And in that moment, everything inside me went still. Not broken. Still. Later that night, I asked him where he'd been. Just to test the waters. He looked me right in the eye and said, "Had to run out for some light bulbs." That was it. No flicker of guilt, no hesitation, just smooth, practiced ease. And that's when I knew. He was lying without even trying. He'd done it before. He'd do it again. And for the first time, I didn't feel pain. I felt strategy. Because if he was bold enough to lie to my face, then I had every right to find the truth in my own way. So I went online, ordered a tiny hidden camera. Nothing fancy. Just enough to do the job. I buried it deep among the rosemary bushes, tucked just right beneath a garden gnome he never noticed. I smiled the whole time I planted it, hands deep in the dirt. It felt strange, like preparing the soil for something new. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to catch. Maybe just confirmation. Or maybe I wanted them to see what betrayal looked like from the outside. I didn't know yet. But I knew I'd find out soon enough. The waiting was the hardest part. Every day I'd go about my routine like nothing had changed. Water the plants, answer emails, smile at neighbors. But underneath, I was wired. Hyper-aware. Every laugh from the yard made my skin crawl. Every creak of the back gate made my stomach clench. I found myself checking the camera feed like a woman checking a fever. Quiet. Obsessed, waiting for the disease to reveal itself. I didn't want to catch them. I needed to. I needed the truth served raw, undeniable. Daniel kept up his act. A kiss on the forehead. A casual "love you" before heading out to run his now daily errands. I played my part too, smiled, nodded, made his favorite coffee. Because sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who stay calm, the ones who gather, who wait, who watch. I wasn't broken, I was sharpening. Something was changing in me, slowly, steadily, like a tide pulling back before the wave hits. And the longer I waited, the more sure I became. They weren't just cheating on me. They were underestimating me. A few days later, I reviewed the footage. I watched from my laptop in the laundry room, door closed, heart thudding like I was about to jump out of a plane. At first, nothing. Just birds, the wind, the soft sway of trees, and then them. Standing at the fence again, just like before. Her hand brushed his. He didn't move away. She said something that made him laugh. They looked around like teenagers skipping class. And then, God help me, they kissed. I paused the screen. Timestamp blinking. Proof. Cold and clear. I don't know how long I sat there, just staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw the laptop across the room and let the rage finally spill out. But another part, the louder part, stayed silent. Watching. Rewinding. Replaying. Over and over. There they were, Daniel and Natalie, acting like our home was their playground. Like I was a ghost, a shadow, someone who'd already vanished. It was humiliating. But strangely, it was also liberating. Because now I wasn't guessing anymore. I knew, and that changes everything. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. Instead, I opened a new folder on my desktop, named it something innocent. Garden photos. Inside, I saved the clip. Then another. I went back through the footage and began collecting every moment, every smile, every stolen glance that proved who they really were. I didn't want revenge, not yet. I wanted documentation. Something that spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. If they thought this was just a fling, a secret giggle behind closed doors, they were about to learn what exposure feels like. That night, I lay beside Daniel, listening to his breathing, steady as ever. I turned slightly, just enough to watch his face in the dark. He looked so peaceful, so unaware. It was almost poetic. He had no idea that the person next to him wasn't his wife anymore. She was someone else now, someone patient, someone precise. And while he slept, I began to sketch the next steps in my mind. No shouting, no tears, just a slow, deliberate unraveling. One he'd never see coming. There's a strange clarity that comes with betrayal, like a fog lifting, but what you see is uglier than you imagined. I sat in front of my computer with the footage open, eyes fixed on the screen. My hands didn't shake, my breathing didn't change. What I felt wasn't sadness anymore. It was something colder, sharper. Every minute of that video was another thread I'd pull loose from the life they thought they could tangle behind my back. I watched them laugh, touch, sneak into my home like it was theirs. My sanctuary turned stage. I scrubbed through the clips, labeling them by date and time, cropping when necessary, adjusting the audio. I didn't need flair, just facts. And the facts were damning. Daniel, walking through the gate with a bottle of wine under his arm. Natalie, slipping off her shoes before stepping inside. Their silhouettes in my kitchen, their voices hushed. My home was in the background of their little affair, and the irony didn't escape me. The very walls he helped paint, the floors I scrubbed, the couch where we binge-watched comedies, those things became the backdrop of his lies. I gave the video a title, Friendly Neighbors, Uncut. A name simple enough to make people click, but cutting enough to make the message clear. I replayed the final cut one more time, watching the betrayal unfold from the lens I had planted, hidden in the soil they thought was neutral ground. This wasn't just about catching them anymore. This was about reclaiming my space, my truth, my voice. They wanted secrets? Fine. But I would give the truth its moment in the sun, and I'd make sure it burned. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to create a digital case file on her own husband, but here I was, exporting clips like a documentarian of my own collapse. And yet, it didn't feel like collapse. It felt like construction. Each frame, each timestamp, each angle was a brick in a new foundation. I watched them linger by the garden hose. I watched Natalie touch his arm like she owned it. And I watched Daniel, my Daniel, smile back like the vows we made were some old joke no one tells anymore. There was one moment I kept returning to. A short clip, barely 15 seconds long. Natalie brushing a strand of hair behind her ear while Daniel reached into his back pocket and handed her a key. My key. Our spare. The one we kept for emergencies. I paused the video there. That small gesture carried more weight than anything else. He hadn't just cheated. He'd handed her access. To me. To our home. To everything we'd built. That key felt like a bullet I didn't see coming. And it hit harder than any kiss or whisper ever could. I backed up the files twice, once on a flash drive, once in the cloud. I wasn't about to lose this to a glitch or an accidental deletion. No, this needed to live in more than one place. I was methodical, calm, detached in the way surgeons have to be before they cut. This wasn't about drama. This was about justice, about truth, stripped of excuses. I wasn't going to ask Daniel to explain. I wasn't going to cry at his feet. I was going to do something far more effective. I was going to let the neighborhood see who they really were. I stared at that finished video like it was a letter I'd never wanted to write. No narration. No edits for sympathy. Just raw, time-stamped betrayal in full color. I didn't want to dramatize it. I wanted people to feel what I felt. Quiet disbelief, then the slow burn of rage crawling up the spine. I imagined them watching it the same way I had. First, confused. Then, uncomfortable. And finally, furious. Not for me, but for themselves, because deep down, everyone knows someone who's lived this. Everyone's known a Daniel. Or worse, a Natalie. The plan came to me while I was weeding the garden. That same patch of rosemary where I'd hidden the camera in the first place. It felt almost poetic, really, pulling lies from the soil, making room for something new. The neighborhood had a WhatsApp group, a mailing list, a portal where people shared everything from lost pets to bake sale flyers. It was a small community, tight-knit, chatty, prone to gossip, which meant they were the perfect audience. They'd watched our love story bloom for years. Now they'd watch it rot in real time. That night, I drafted the message. Brief, anonymous. Nothing angry or desperate, just a link and a sender name that said it all. Laura, the wife. No subject line, no warning. Just a quiet little detonation set to go off the next morning. As I hovered over the send button, I didn't hesitate. Not for 1 second. Because I wasn't just showing the truth. I was reclaiming the narrative. If they wanted to play their little game behind fences and locked doors, I'd simply change the rules. And I knew. Tomorrow, everything would change. By 7:12 a.m., the neighborhood was on fire, and all I'd done was click send. I stayed in bed a little longer that morning, sipping coffee slowly, letting the chaos roll in through my phone. The group chat exploded first, dozens of unread messages. Has anyone seen this? Is this real? Oh my God. My heart didn't race. In fact, I felt oddly still, like I was finally breathing in clean air after months of holding my breath. No more secrets, no more pretending, just the truth, playing out in living rooms all across the block. By 8 the replies got personal. Is that Daniel? Is that Natalie? How could they? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My silence said more than any message could. I imagined them both, phone screens glowing in their hands, watching their little affair unravel on loop. Natalie's perfectly curated image as the sweet, harmless neighbor? Gone. Daniel's charming, devoted husband act? Dismantled in under 5 minutes. No screaming, no confrontation. Just a quiet public exposure, surgical and unrelenting. And everyone had a front row seat. Even Natalie's husband chimed in. One short message that said everything. We need to talk. I don't know what happened in their house that morning, but I imagined broken glass, slammed doors, maybe even suitcases dragged out to the curb. As for Daniel, he didn't text me. Not at first. Maybe he was still trying to find a way to explain the unexplainable. Or maybe he was just stunned that I had beaten him at his own game. Either way, I wasn't waiting. I had already moved past pain. I was somewhere else now, where truth isn't just power, it's protection. By mid-morning, people stopped pretending they hadn't watched it. I could feel the shift on the street, curtained windows, sidelong glances, whispers behind clipped hedges. I took a walk just to see. The air felt electric, like before a thunderstorm. I passed Mrs. Callahan, who usually stopped to chat about her begonias. This time, she just gave me a stiff nod, eyes wide, as if I were holding a weapon instead of a cup of tea. And in a way, I was. Truth can be more cutting than any blade when wielded by someone who's done being lied to. The messages kept rolling in. Some silent, just heart emojis or shocked faces. Others long, impassioned paragraphs from women I barely knew. "You're braver than I could ever be. I wish I'd done this when it happened to me." That surprised me. The solidarity. The silent army of women who had once stood exactly where I stood, but kept it quiet. Their pain tucked behind smiles and polite small talk. Not me. Not this time. I wasn't just calling out an affair, I was shining a light on the mold people pretend not to see. Around noon, Daniel finally showed up, stormed into the house like a man who'd been publicly executed. His face was flushed, jaw clenched. He tossed his keys on the counter like punctuation. "What the hell did you do?" I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't even raise my voice. I just looked him square in the eye and said, "Smile for the cameras next time." And in that moment, I saw it. The panic. The realization that I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to forgive. I had pulled back the curtain, and I wasn't planning to close it again. Daniel stood there, jaw working, like he couldn't find the right script for this scene. He was used to me being quiet, forgiving, the one who smoothed things over. But that version of me had walked out the door the moment Natalie's perfume showed up on our couch cushions. He tried again. "You humiliated me." His voice cracked, more wounded pride than real remorse. I leaned against the kitchen counter and said, without blinking, "No, you did that all by yourself. I just hit send." And just like that, the mask he wore for years slipped. Natalie disappeared. No more morning greetings, no more garden visits, no more sugary smiles. Her car was gone by the next day. I don't know if she left or if her husband sent her packing, but the silence from that house was almost satisfying. The same neighbors who used to chat with her at the mailbox now crossed the street. And Daniel? He was a ghost in his own skin, still sleeping under my roof, for now, but avoiding my eyes, walking on eggshells. His charm had nowhere left to land. No one was buying it anymore. And me? I was fine. Actually, more than fine. I slept. Deeply. For the first time in months, I felt like I owned the ground I walked on. Not because I exposed them, but because I had chosen myself, my dignity, my truth. They thought I'd stay quiet. They thought I'd collapse. But the thing about planting seeds, some of us know exactly what we're growing, and the bloom comes when they least expect it. The house is quieter now. Not the tense, tight silence that used to hang between us like fog, but something gentler. Peaceful. Like the air right after a summer storm, when everything's wet but clean. Daniel moved out 2 weeks after the video went public. No fight, no dramatic exit. Just a suitcase, a blank stare, and the soft click of the front door. I didn't follow him. Didn't watch from the window. I just stood at the sink and exhaled. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt alone, but not abandoned. Natalie's house stayed empty for a while. No porch lights, no wind chimes. Just shutters drawn and an overgrown lawn that mirrored the mess she left behind. The neighborhood settled, slowly, like soil after being tilled. People waved again, cautiously. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. I had said what needed saying, without ever opening my mouth. And that, in itself, became its own kind of reputation. Not the scorned wife, not the woman left behind, but the one who saw everything, and handled it with spine and grace. One morning, I stepped into the garden with pruning shears in one hand and coffee in the other. The rosemary was thriving. So were the tomatoes. I ran my fingers through the basil and smiled. This garden had seen it all. It had watched lies bloom and secrets rot. But it had also held the beginning of my freedom. So I started replanting. Nothing dramatic. Just color. A few wildflowers. Some lavender. Something new. Something mine. And as I dug into the dirt, I realized I wasn't cleaning up a mess. I was planting a beginning. The divorce was clean. Easier than I expected, really. Daniel didn't fight for the house. Didn't push back on what I asked for. I think part of him knew he didn't deserve to. Or maybe he was just too humiliated to drag it out in court. Either way, I walked away with what mattered. My name. My home. My peace. I even got the dog, not that he'd ever walked her. And when the papers arrived, I signed them without ceremony. No tears, no champagne. Just a quiet moment in the kitchen, my hand steady, my heart still. It's funny, after everything, people started treating me differently. Not with pity, with respect. Like I'd done something bold they couldn't quite say out loud. Women stopped me at the market. One even slipped me a note in the baking aisle that simply read, "Thank you." That moved me more than I expected. Because what I did wasn't about vengeance. Not really. It was about ending the silence. About making sure no one mistook my stillness for weakness again. I had protected myself in the most visible way possible. And it echoed. Then one afternoon, a moving truck pulled into the driveway next door. A new couple. Fresh faces, youngish, full of nervous laughter as they carried in boxes. I watched from my garden bench, sipping iced tea, listening to them argue about where to put the grill. The woman caught my eye and smiled. I smiled back. Just enough. Not an invitation, just an acknowledgement. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't afraid. But I had learned. And this time the fence between us would be more than just wood. It would be boundary. Earned and honored. Some evenings I still sit out back, barefoot in the grass, watching the light change across the yard. It's a different kind of quiet now, the kind that hums instead of haunts. I water the new flowers, trim back the old growth, and take my time. No more checking my phone, no more wondering where he is. Just the sound of wind through the rosemary and the steady rhythm of my own breath. Healing, I've learned, isn't loud. It's not grand or dramatic. It's slow, honest, sometimes messy, but always forward. I don't look back with regret, not anymore. I gave that marriage everything I had. And when the truth knocked the air out of me, I found a way to breathe again anyway. Not through fury, not through revenge, through clarity, through the decision to stop protecting the wrong people. And in doing so, I protected myself. I think that's what strength really is. Not how loudly you fight, but how deeply you reclaim what's yours. Your voice, your space, your worth. Quietly. Completely. Now, when I glance across the fence, it's not with suspicion or bitterness. It's just a look, a moment, a breath of peace. Because the garden isn't what it used to be. It's something new, something stronger, something mine. And if there's one thing I'll never forget, it's this. They thought the garden was theirs to play in. They forgot who planted it.
My name is Margaret Joseph, and I'm 29 years old. If you ask anyone who knows me, they'll tell you I've always been the steady one, the quiet anchor, the type of person you can count on to keep promises, remember birthdays, make dinner even when I'm tired, and actually listen when you tell me about your day. I never thought being steady could ever be seen as a flaw. When I met Ethan, he made me believe it was the very thing that set me apart. I still remember that first year, when he used to wrap his arms around me from behind while I worked on my laptop and whisper, "You're the anchor I never knew I needed." His words melted into me like honey, and for the first time I thought maybe I didn't need to be dazzling or unpredictable to be loved. Maybe showing up every day, just as I was, could be enough. Ethan was trying to write a novel back then. I believed in his talent, so I carried more of the weight, paying the rent, cooking, cleaning. I never once made him feel guilty about it. If anything, I felt proud that I could give him space to focus on his dream. And in the beginning, he appreciated it. He'd look at me with that soft, almost reverent smile, as if I'd rescued him from a storm. But storms don't stay quiet forever. I don't know the exact moment things shifted, but I remember the signs. He began going out more. First, writers' nights, then catching up with old friends. He started dressing differently too. Not just casual nice, but deliberate. Fitted shirts, expensive cologne, a little too much gel in his hair. And then came the phone. The screen always tilted away from me. Notifications turned off. Messages answered in the bathroom with the door shut. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Everyone deserves privacy. But in the back of my mind, a cold suspicion began to take root. One night I was walking past the living room and heard a woman's voice on speaker, not laughing politely, but the kind of laugh that curls around words, intimate. Ethan's head snapped up when he saw me, and he ended the call in a heartbeat. "Who was that?" I asked. He didn't even flinch. "Oh, that's Melissa. We were friends in college. She just reached out." "Melissa?" I repeated slowly. "Funny, you never mentioned her before." Ethan shrugged, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It's not a big deal. She just gets me, you know? We went through similar stuff back then. It's good to reconnect." Something inside me clenched. "Gets you?" The words hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to say, "Haven't I been here every single day, listening, supporting, holding you together when you fell apart?" But his expression warned me off. A tired sigh, the kind people give when they want to shut down a conversation without refusing outright. "Margaret, don't make this a thing. You're amazing, but sometimes I need to talk to people who've actually been through what I've been through. You've had a pretty stable life." Melissa listens without trying to fix me. That line lodged itself in my chest like a thorn. Not because I believed it, but because I realized I was suddenly being compared and found lacking. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt since we first met, the tremor of being quietly replaced. A few weeks later, I tried to bridge the growing distance between us. One evening, while we were making dinner, I asked gently, "Do you want to go visit my parents next weekend? They've been asking about you." Ethan's hand stilled over the chopping board. He didn't meet my eyes. "I don't think I'm in the right headspace to be around people who expect things from me, especially your mom." I froze. My mother adored him. She always went out of her way to make him feel welcome. The excuse didn't fit. He caught my look and added quickly, "It's just, everyone around you sees me as lucky, but maybe I want to feel lucky too." His words were careful, but the undertone wasn't. Something had shifted. The man who once said I was his anchor now made me feel like a weight tied around his ankle. Still, I pushed the unease aside. I wanted to believe it was just stress, just a phase. But the truth was waiting for me, casual as a storm cloud. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. I came home from grocery shopping, bags digging into my arms. I tossed him a pack of the protein bars he liked, smiling. "Hey, I got the ones you wanted." Ethan barely looked up from his phone. Then, without hesitation, he said, "Margaret, I didn't cheat. I just reconnected with someone who actually gets me." My world tilted. The bag slipped from my hands. "What? Melissa?" He nodded once, eyes flicking back to his screen. "We kissed, but it wasn't cheating. It was just closure." The word closure echoed in my ears like a cruel joke. I stared at him, trying to find the man I once knew. "Closure?" I whispered. "You wouldn't understand," he said lightly. "You've never had anything real and messy. You've always been steady, safe. I needed to feel the chaos again, just to figure myself out." That word, chaos. He said it like it was a prize, like stability was a prison he needed to escape. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't even ask how long it had been going on. I just nodded. "Okay." His head jerked up, confusion flashing across his face. "Okay? What does that mean?" "It means," I said evenly, "go do what you need to do." Maybe he expected me to fight, to cry, to give him the performance that would make his betrayal easier to justify. But I gave him nothing. That weekend, Ethan packed a bag and said he was going to Melissa's just to clear his head. He didn't know I had already made my own decision. While he was gone, I packed my things into 2 suitcases. I scrubbed the apartment until not a single trace of me remained. I left his keys on the coffee table, right beside the candle he once bought me last winter, now burned down to nothing but wax. And then I walked away without leaving a note, without leaving a goodbye. Because when someone can look you in the eye and rename betrayal as closure, you don't owe them a single word. The night Ethan came back to the apartment, I was already long gone. The drawers were empty, the closet hollow, my scent vanished from the sheets. At 7:42 p.m., my phone lit up. Ethan. Margaret, what the hell is this? Where are you? Why are your drawers empty? A minute later, Margaret, seriously, this is immature. I told you I needed space. This is a huge overreaction. 10 minutes passed. So you just leave while I'm gone? Like a coward? This is abandonment. That word, abandonment. The same man who had kissed another woman, who had justified betrayal as closure, was now calling himself the abandoned one. I didn't answer. The messages kept coming over the next few days. Each one shifted tones like he was trying on new masks. Anger, accusation, pleading, blame. This is cruel, Margaret. You knew I was vulnerable. You're throwing away everything we built. I never left you. You left me. I muted his number, but silence has a way of amplifying desperation. A week later, my phone buzzed with a name I didn't expect. Vanessa. She used to be Ethan's friend. Never really mine. Hey, Margaret. I just wanted to say, I get it now. I used to think you were too quiet, too passive, but I see what happened. Ethan's been a mess. Melissa dumped him after like 5 days, said he was too much, too intense. 5 days. That was the lifespan of the soulmate connection he had risked everything for. I stared at Vanessa's message, a bitter laugh catching in my throat. The very traits Ethan had accused me of lacking. The storm, the chaos, Melissa had rejected in him. Vanessa added one more line, not taking sides, but people are starting to see it. He romanticized dysfunction. You never had a chance. I didn't reply. I didn't want to be pulled into the gossip, but I couldn't stop the shiver of recognition. Ethan wasn't just unraveling, he was rewriting the story to make himself the victim. That night, against my better judgment, I checked his social media. The transformation was almost grotesque. The cheerful snapshots of us together were gone. In their place, black and white selfies, teary-eyed close-ups, cryptic quotes like, "You can't lose someone who was never really yours." The calm ones hurt you in silence. Safety isn't the same as love. The comments were turned off. I shut my phone and pressed my palms against my eyes, realizing exactly what was happening. Ethan wasn't mourning me. He was performing pain. He wanted an audience for his downfall, a stage for his tragedy. And in some twisted way, he believed I was still watching. Ethan's messages didn't stop. They only grew more desperate. At first, it was short bursts of guilt. Margaret, you're punishing me with silence. Congrats. You win. I'm miserable. Then it turned into full confessions, voice notes at 2 a.m. His voice cracked halfway through one. I know I hurt you, okay? But I was confused. You were so perfect it made me feel broken. Melissa was just a distraction, a test. But she wasn't you. She was never you. Please, call me back. I didn't. Instead, I started piecing myself back together. I took on 2 new design clients. I began sleeping through the night again. Even the smallest things, waking up before my alarm, drinking coffee without nausea, listening to music I'd forgotten I loved, felt like signs that I was resurfacing. But Ethan, he was unraveling in public. Vanessa texted me again one afternoon. He posted one of his old short stories on Medium. It's about a woman trapped in a relationship with a passive-aggressive partner who uses silence as a weapon. The woman cheats, but it's framed as empowerment. The ending? She's alone, misunderstood, and readers are supposed to pity her. I read the description twice and felt a chill run down my spine. Ethan hadn't just rewritten our breakup for social media. He was fictionalizing it, bending it into a narrative where he was the victim and I was the villain. 3 likes. One of them was his own. Then came the shift in his messages. No longer just blame, but guilt bombs. Long streams of text without punctuation. Desperation spilling across the screen. I miss the way you looked at me like I was whole, even when I wasn't. I know I pushed you away, but it wasn't because I didn't love you. It was because I didn't know how to love myself. Melissa just made me feel seen for a second, but it wasn't real. It was never real. And now I'm stuck, and you won't even talk to me, and it's killing me because you were my person. I stopped reading. By then, I wasn't angry anymore. Not heartbroken, just detached, as though Ethan was someone I'd once known in another life. But detachment doesn't stop ghosts from knocking. It happened on a Saturday morning. I was in sweatpants, sipping coffee, scrolling through client emails, when I heard a knock on my apartment door. I opened it without thinking, and there he was. Ethan. He looked ruined. Hollow eyes sunk into dark circles, hair greasy and unkempt. hoodie hanging off his frame like it belonged to someone else. He smelled faintly of old cologne and stale regret. "Margaret," he breathed, like saying my name might save him. "Can we talk?" I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please, just 5 minutes. I'm not here to beg." Then he laughed once, brittle and broken. "Okay, maybe a little begging." We sat on the concrete steps, the morning sun making his exhaustion look even harsher. He kept his hands clasped, eyes down, like a child caught lying. "You hurt me," he started. "More than I thought possible. You ghosted me, Margaret. You didn't even try. You just walked away like I was trash." I tilted my head, studying him. "You said it wasn't cheating. You called it closure, that I wouldn't understand." He flinched. "You're quoting me now?" "No," I said evenly. "I'm reflecting. You wanted honesty. I'm giving it to you." He shook his head, desperation tightening his jaw. I was scared. Melissa reminded me of who I used to be. She made me feel alive again. But she wasn't you. She could never be you. I stared at him, feeling the strange clarity that comes after a storm. "You didn't want to understand yourself. You just wanted to feel wanted by someone new. And when that burned out, you came back here, looking for what you threw away." "I didn't throw you away," he snapped, voice cracking. "I got confused." "Confused people don't kiss their exes and rename it growth," I replied. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument could have been. Finally, his voice broke into a whisper. "We were good together. I could see us finding our way back. You were home to me." I looked at him and realized something shocking. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel longing, not even sadness. I felt nothing. I stood, brushing dust from my sweatpants. "I'm not your home anymore, Ethan. I don't think I ever was. I was just a stop on your way to chaos." His eyes shone wet. "You're really not going to give me another chance?" I gave him a polite, detached smile. "No, but I hope you find what you're looking for, just not here." I walked back inside and closed the door. He didn't knock again. Ethan never reached out directly again after that morning on the steps. But ghosts don't die quietly. Vanessa messaged me a few weeks later. "Just FYI, Ethan's telling people you emotionally abandoned him. He says he tried to reconcile, but you refused to grow." I thanked her, then asked her not to send me updates anymore. I didn't need to know how he spun the story. The people who mattered already knew the truth. The rest? Let them believe whatever made them feel important. Still, fragments of his collapse drifted into my orbit. Screenshots from mutual acquaintances. A glimpse of his new healing account on Instagram. Cryptic quotes, grainy selfies, captions like, "Sometimes the calmest people are the most dangerous. Don't confuse silence with peace." 2 followers, 4 likes. Once, Lena, my brother's fiance, showed me one post with disbelief. I only shook my head and turned away. Ethan could twist the narrative however he wanted. I was done caring. Because by then, my life had begun to bloom again. I'd found a small apartment, clean white walls, sunlit mornings, hardwood floors that didn't creak with memories. I set up a big desk for my design work, bought myself a cheap coffee maker, and hung a single plant in the corner. I named it Felix. It thrived more than Ethan ever did. For the first time in years, I felt free. And then life surprised me. I wasn't looking for anyone, but I met Lucas. No drama, no chaos. Just a man who didn't need to be rescued from storms or chased into calm. He was steady in a way that didn't drain me, because he wasn't fighting himself every second. With him, peace wasn't boring. It was effortless. We started simple. Coffee dates, bookstore walks, cooking dinner together on slow Sundays. He didn't romanticize dysfunction. He didn't need chaos to feel alive. One evening, months later, I found myself at a birthday party hosted by a mutual acquaintance. Vanessa was there, along with a few of Ethan's old friends. "You look good," Vanessa said, hugging me. Like, actually good. Rested, calm, confident. I smirked. "I sleep better when I'm not being gaslit." The group laughed, but I noticed the way their shoulders relaxed, as if they'd been waiting for someone to say it aloud. Then, across the room, I saw him. Ethan. He hadn't seen me yet. His hoodie sagged off his frame. His hair was unkempt, his eyes restless, unfocused. He held a drink but didn't sip. He drifted between conversations without ever belonging. Then his gaze lifted and landed on me. For a moment, his face lit up like he thought I might smile. Wave. Offer him some sliver of recognition, some thread back to the story he once cast himself as hero in. But I didn't move. I didn't look away either. I just looked through him. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even haunted anymore. He wasn't part of my story. Not anymore. He blinked, faltered, and turned back to the bar. That was the last time I saw him. Now, my life is quieter. Smaller, maybe. But it's better. Filled with sunlight, design projects that excite me, and weekends where Lucas and I write in the same room without needing to fill the silence. Sometimes I think back to Ethan's words that day. I didn't cheat. I just reconnected with someone who actually gets me. It makes me laugh now, because in the end, I did reconnect. Not with him, not with Melissa, not with anyone else. I reconnected with myself, and that was enough. My name is Gloria Thompson. I'm 29 years old, and for a long time, I thought I had everything figured out. For 3 years, I was with Ethan. When we first met, he was this whirlwind, spontaneous, unpredictable, and a little reckless, but so alive. I was the grounded one. I liked plans, lists, stability. I worked in finance, not because I loved crunching numbers, but because it was practical. It meant a future. A home, a life we could build together. While Ethan's friends hopped from one influencer dream to another, living on credit cards and wild schemes, I was laying down bricks, not just for myself, but for us. I wanted us to have something solid when the noise of their chaos faded. A year ago, I even turned down a major promotion. It would have fast-tracked me to a senior position, but it required me to move out of state for a year. Ethan made it clear he didn't want long distance. So, without hesitation, I stayed. I thought love meant choosing him over ambition. I thought we were on the same page about our future. But lately, something had shifted. It was subtle at first. His eyes stayed on his phone more than on me. A quick smirk, a hidden chuckle he wouldn't explain. His comments about my safe little job grew sharper, almost mocking. Weekends I spent budgeting or fixing up our apartment became jokes to him. "Gloria, do you ever live?" He'd laugh. I brushed it off, convincing myself it was just stress or a passing mood. So I doubled down on being dependable, the rock in the storm. Ethan started posting more online, too. His captions were all about freedom, living wild, finding more. Performative, I thought. A phase. I trusted him. Or maybe I just wanted to trust what we'd built. The betrayal didn't come with a dramatic explosion. It crept in quietly, hidden in the smallest detail. One morning, I couldn't find my phone charger. Our apartment wasn't big, so I knew it had to be nearby. I checked under the couch cushions, and that's when I saw it. Ethan's phone, screen lit, buzzing with a notification. A message banner stretched across the top. It was from someone I didn't recognize. The words made my stomach drop. Explicit, unmistakable. My hand trembled as I scrolled. The thread was long. Inside jokes, late-night plans, and then me. Pictures of our apartment. A selfie of me, asleep in bed, captioned with, "Guess who I'm ditching tonight." I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt nothing. A strange, cold emptiness. I walked into the kitchen. Ethan was there, humming as he made coffee, casual as ever. "Morning, babe," he said, smiling like nothing had changed. I held up his phone. My voice came out flat. "What is this?" His smile vanished. In an instant, irritation replaced it. He snatched the phone from my hand. "What the hell, Gloria? You snooping through my stuff?" "No," I said evenly. "I found it under the couch. Don't play dumb. Who is she?" He sipped his coffee, eyes narrowing. He didn't deny it, not even a flicker of guilt. Instead, he smirked. "You're overreacting. She's just a friend." I forced the words out, low and steady. "A friend who asks what you're doing to get rid of me?" The silence between us was sharp, like glass about to break. And for the first time, I realized just how far away Ethan already was. Ethan's smirk lingered, that condescending twist of his mouth I used to mistake for charm. He leaned against the counter, coffee mug in hand like we were discussing the weather. "Look, Gloria," he said finally, tone almost bored. "I'm not going to apologize for what I need, and what you're giving me isn't it." The words hit like stones. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't even angry. He was smug, certain. "You're safe," he went on, swirling the mug casually. "Predictable, stable. That might be someone's dream, but it's not mine. I want more. I want excitement. You? You're a mortgage before we even have a house, a steady job that keeps you chained. I don't want to be held back." I couldn't stop the bitter laugh that rose in my throat. "Held back? Ethan, I turned down a promotion, an entire career path for you. I stayed when I could have been halfway across the country chasing something bigger. I did that because I thought we were building something together. He rolled his eyes, dismissive. And that's the problem. You think the finish line is a steady paycheck and a condo with beige walls. I'm not ready to play house. I want someone who's not afraid to live. The arrogance in his voice was unbearable. He wasn't just rejecting me, he was rewriting everything we'd shared, everything I'd sacrificed, as some kind of mistake. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. Somewhere inside me, something snapped. Not with fury, but with clarity. His words no longer had the power to wound. I turned without another word and went to the bedroom. My duffel bag was still at the top of the closet, half buried under winter coats. I dragged it down, the zippers rasped louder than his voice behind me. "What are you doing?" he demanded, following me. His irritation was finally breaking into something less controlled. "Gloria, seriously, you're being dramatic." "I'm leaving," I said flatly, folding clothes into the bag. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't falter. There was no fire left to fuel, just ice. "You're just gonna walk out?" He sounded almost incredulous, like the thought had never even crossed his mind. "After everything, you're just gonna give up?" I looked at him then. Really looked. His posture, his smirk, the mask of a boy who thought the world owed him more than it had given. And for the first time, I saw him clearly. "Yes," I said simply. The finality in my tone seemed to stun him more than any screaming match could have. I zipped the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked past him. The silence in the apartment was deafening, broken only by the sharp click of the front door lock behind me. Outside, the cool air hit my skin like a baptism. I felt no tears, no rage, just an eerie calm. That night, I crashed on my friend Marissa's couch. She didn't press for details. She handed me a blanket, made tea, and said nothing. The quiet was unbearable at first. For 3 years, I had been the anchor in a storm of Ethan's chaos. Without his whirlwind, the stillness felt foreign. But beneath the silence, something small flickered, something that felt like freedom. Within a week, I found a tiny studio apartment. It was barely more than a box with a stove, but when I closed the door behind me, it felt like a palace. It was mine. No shared chaos, no hidden phones under couches, just clean lines, fresh air, and solitude. I blocked Ethan's number, then his friends, then even his brother, anyone who could tether me back to him. Not out of anger, but out of necessity. I needed the line cut clean. The hardest part wasn't the pain, it was the quiet. But slowly, the quiet began to sound less like emptiness and more like peace. And then, through whispers and mutual friends, the news began to trickle in. Ethan wasn't just moving on. He was parading his new life with someone else. Lavish dinners, weekend trips, filtered smiles plastered all over social media. Captions like, "Finally free" and "Living my best life" screamed louder than his grin ever could. It was a performance, a stage play meant for me, for everyone we knew. He wanted the world to see he had upgraded. But performances never last forever. At first, I ignored it. The photos, the captions, the endless parade of adventure Ethan posted with his new girlfriend. Expensive restaurants, neon concerts, weekend trips to nowhere in particular, all filtered in gold and blue. I could almost hear his voice in every caption. "Look at me, Gloria. Look what you'll never have." It was curated, deliberate, like he was performing for an audience of one, and for a while, it worked. People we both knew commented with little hearts and clapping emojis. "So happy for you too. What a glow up." But the cracks came quickly. They always do. My friend Alex was the first to say something. We met for coffee, and after some hesitation, he leaned in across the table. "You know Ethan's new life?" he asked carefully. "It's all fake." I raised an eyebrow. I hadn't planned to indulge in gossip, but curiosity edged in. "Fake how?" Alex sighed. "That girl. He's living off her, completely. Rent, dinners, trips, all on her credit cards. Ethan doesn't have a real job. He's running the same half-baked crypto schemes he was pitching last year. You know how that ended." A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Of course. Ethan wasn't building a new life. He was draining someone else's. Weeks later, another voice chimed in. This time it was Lisa, a mutual friend who still followed him online. She sent me a string of texts late one night. "Gloria, you won't believe this. Ethan got caught cheating again. The girl he's with? She found out through another woman blasting him all over social media." I scrolled through screenshots Lisa forwarded. Posts of a furious woman exposing Ethan, his lies, his manipulations, his double life. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't private, it was public humiliation, the kind you can't clean up with pretty filters. And suddenly his feed changed. The bold captions stopped. The extravagant outings disappeared. The smiling photos dwindled. In their place, silence. Hesitant, vague posts with no likes, no fanfare. I could almost picture him, hunched over his phone, scrolling through comments, desperate for the validation that had once fueled him. Lisa messaged again. He's a mess. Screaming matches with her in public. People are sick of it. Even his closest friends are pulling away. I set my phone down. For the first time in months, I felt a sharp, unexpected pang of something that wasn't hurt. It wasn't satisfaction exactly, it was clarity. Ethan hadn't left me for a better life. He had left me for a disaster dressed as freedom. And that was when my own phone lit up. At first, I didn't recognize the number, just a short, desperate line. Hey, it's me, can we talk? I stared at the message until it blurred. My phone's spam filter had tucked it into a separate folder, as if the universe itself wanted to shield me. I deleted it without replying. But Ethan wasn't done. More texts came, each more frantic than the last. Long apologies. Pleas for forgiveness. Rambling paragraphs about mistakes and lessons learned. One message read, "You were the only one who ever really cared about me. I miss what we had. Please, Gloria." I didn't answer, not a word. But as the days passed, the texts piled higher. His desperation seeped through every line. And slowly, the pressure spread. One evening, a message popped up from a number I did recognize, his brother's. "Gloria, please, he's not doing well. You're the only one he'll listen to." I scoffed out loud. The same brother who used to mock me for being boring, now begging for my help. Then came a message from his best friend. "She's in a dark place. Be the bigger person. Call him." The hypocrisy was suffocating. These were the same people who had laughed at his jokes at my expense, who had cheered him on as he flaunted his new adventure. Now they wanted me to clean up his mess. I blocked them all, one by one. I had cut the rope once. I wasn't about to tie it back around my neck. But deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before Ethan's desperation stopped hiding behind screens and came clawing back into my life in person. The messages didn't stop. If anything, they multiplied, filling my spam folder like weeds, suffocating in their desperation. I made a huge mistake. "Gloria, I swear I've changed. Please just give me one chance to explain." I never answered, not once, but the silence seemed to make him louder. Some of his messages turned manipulative. "You're cruel for ignoring me. I know you still care." Others were drenched in pity. "I can't sleep, I can't eat, I need you." The man who once sneered at my boring stability was now clawing for scraps of the very life he'd thrown away. Then came the calls, not from Ethan, but from the people around him. His brother texted me again. "He's not okay, Gloria. You're the only one who can pull him out of this." His best friend messaged late at night. "She's learned her lesson. Be the bigger person. Please just call him." "She," I repeated bitterly when I read it. That slip of the tongue said it all. To them, Ethan's chaos was always someone else's problem to fix. He was always the tragic hero in their story, never the villain. But I remembered the words he threw at me in the kitchen. "I'm not going to apologize for what I need." He hadn't apologized then. He didn't regret what he'd done. He only regretted the consequences. I blocked every single one of them. His brother, his friends, every mutual connection. My phone grew quieter by the day until finally there was only silence again. It should have ended there, but I should have known Ethan wasn't capable of letting go without one last performance. A few weeks later, I had friends over to my new condo. We were piecing together furniture, half laughing, at the crooked bookshelf I insisted I could fix without directions. Music filled the room, warm and alive. It felt like the first time in years I could breathe without holding my chest tight. Then the doorbell rang. I thought it was the pizza delivery until I looked out the window. A car I knew too well sat at the curb, and standing in front of my building was Ethan. He looked nothing like the man I remembered. His hair was messy, unkempt. His clothes hung loose, no designer labels or flashy colors this time, just faded jeans and a tired hoodie. His shoulders slumped under an invisible weight. My stomach didn't twist. My heart didn't race. I didn't feel fear. What I felt was annoyance, like a fly buzzing in a room where I had finally found peace. When I stepped outside, he lit up, eyes wet, a trembling smile breaking across his face. "Gloria," he said softly, voice fraying at the edges. "Thank God. I had to see you. I had to tell you. I cut him off. What are you doing here, Ethan? His eyes darted to the laughter drifting from inside my apartment, then back to me. His lip trembled. I'm so sorry. I was such an idiot. Everything I thought I wanted, it was a lie. She destroyed me. She cheated on me. She took my money. His voice cracked. She said things no one should ever hear. I thought I was chasing freedom, but all I found was hell. Tears spilled over, running down his cheeks. His body shook with the performance of a broken man, and maybe, once upon a time, that would have been enough to pull me back. But standing there, I realized something chilling. It wasn't love that had brought him here. It wasn't even regret. It was hunger. Hunger for shelter, for safety, for the soft place he had burned to the ground. And I was no longer that place. Ethan's tears dripped into the collar of his hoodie. His voice cracked again, softer now, trembling with the kind of desperation that used to break me. I was wrong, Gloria, about everything. You were the only one who was ever real, the only one who cared. I miss you. I miss us. Please, just give me another chance. I can do better this time. For a heartbeat, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of the irony. Months ago, those words would have shattered me. Now they sounded like lines from a bad play. I steadied my voice, calm and unshaken. You once told me you weren't going to apologize for what you need. Do you remember? He froze, his lips parted, but no sound came out. You said I was just a stepping stone, I continued, my tone even. A placeholder until you found someone better. His face crumpled. Gloria, I didn't mean... But you were right, I cut in. You were a stepping stone, but not the way you think. He blinked, confused, like the script he'd prepared had suddenly been ripped from his hands. You taught me that my worth isn't measured by what I can provide for someone else. You taught me the only person who can hold me back is me. I gestured toward the apartment behind me. The hum of voices, the sound of laughter spilling out into the night. I took the promotion. I bought this place. I built a life I'm proud of, without you. Ethan's expression shifted, panic cracking into anger. His tears dried into something sharper. So that's it? He hissed. After everything, you just slammed the door in my face? You think you're better than me now? I didn't flinch. I smiled. A real smile. I don't think about you at all. His face twisted. For a split second, the mask slipped, revealing the hollow man beneath, the one who needed to tear others down to feel whole. I stepped back toward the door. Goodbye, Ethan. The door closed behind me with a quiet click, not a slam. Final, definite. Inside, the warmth of my new life wrapped around me. My friends laughed at something in the living room. Someone handed me a slice of pizza. Music pulsed softly through the air. I didn't glance back at the window. I didn't need to. Ethan was outside, and I was home. The silence I once feared had transformed into a symphony.